Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The 2025 Miami Dolphins enter this NFL season carrying a label they might secretly enjoy, the sleeper team of the AFC. Now, let me explain what I mean, because sleeper doesn't mean irrelevant, and it doesn't mean bad. It means a team that people overlook, a team that doesn't dominate off-season headlines, but suddenly becomes dangerous when the games actually count. We've seen this story before in football. The 2021 Cincinnati Bengals were doubted until they shocked the world and ended up in the Super Bowl. The 2024 Washington Commanders had the same underdog script when they stunned Detroit and made the NFC Championship. That's the very essence of a sleeper. Nobody expects it. Nobody is hyping it. But by December or January, everyone suddenly says, "Whoa, how did we miss this?" And I believe that exact narrative could belong to the Miami Dolphins this season, if things break right. When you think about sleeper teams, the first ingredient is media silence, and Miami has plenty of that this year. No one is predicting a deep playoff run, and barely anyone is talking about them compared to the Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, or even the Lions and Eagles. That silence is key because it removes pressure. Miami's history already shows they thrive when underestimated. In 2008, people doubted them after a disastrous prior year, yet they won the division. In 2016, they were written off after starting 1-4, but ended up in the playoffs. In 2023, the narrative was wild card at best. Then they ripped through the schedule, winning 9 of 12 early games before injuries dragged them down. This team has lived off that "nobody believes in us" mentality before. Going into 2025, they carry it again. And history says when Miami flies under the radar, that's when they're the most dangerous team to ignore. Another reason Miami deserves sleeper status is their offense, which recently proved it can lead the league. In 2023, they topped the NFL in total yards and finished second in points, just behind Dallas. That year, they beat the Cowboys on Christmas Eve with a game-winning kick to clinch the playoffs. That offense is still here, with most of the same firepower intact. The issue has never been talent. It has been health. And when we talk about health, of course, everything starts with quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Tua is the key, not because he's perfect, but because he's the one who makes this machine function. With him, the Dolphins win at a clip above 60%, and at Hard Rock Stadium his winning percentage is among the highest of any active quarterback. Yet, somehow, he's still underrated because the media reduces his story to injuries. But let's be honest, any quarterback is one bad hit away from a season collapse. Think about that argument. Without Mahomes, Kansas City is finished. Without Lamar Jackson, Baltimore falls apart. Without Josh Allen, Buffalo isn't anywhere near elite. That reality exists for every team. Miami just gets labeled unfairly when people attach it solely to Tua. But numbers don't lie. When he's in the lineup, this is a winning team, period. If 2025 gives him a healthy stretch with his offensive weapons, defenses will again struggle to contain this unit. That Christmas Eve victory over Dallas wasn't a fluke. It was proof Miami's offense can trade blows with the best. And it's not just about Tua. Tyreek Hill remains one of the most electric playmakers in football, capable of changing a game with a single touch. Add Jalen Waddle stretching defenses and a strong backfield rotation, and suddenly Miami doesn't just have speed, they have balance. That's why dismissing this offense feels like an enormous mistake this season. The defense is the other side of the sleeper equation, and here's where Anthony Weaver enters the picture. He's Miami's defensive coordinator, and trust me, people will start knowing his name. Weaver has the traits of the next great defensive mind, someone you could honestly compare to Steve Spagnuolo, the Kansas City guru who always finds a way to deliver in big games. Weaver inherits a Dolphins defense with huge potential, and the biggest if, again, is health. Miami's secondary has depth issues, but smart signings like Rasul Douglas and Juju Brents give the younger cornerbacks a chance to learn while providing veteran stability. Safety help is also on the way with Ifeatu Melifonwu and Ashton Davis potentially available early in the season. Add Minkah Fitzpatrick's leadership, and the defensive backfield doesn't look nearly as thin. What it really needs is time on the field together, gelling into a unit capable of creating turnovers in high-pressure situations. And let's not forget the front seven, which might secretly be the strength of this roster. Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips are both coming back from injuries, and both are motivated to prove they're still elite edge rushers. Add in Chop Robinson, Matthew Judon, Zach Sealer, and first-round pick Kenneth Grant, and suddenly Miami has a defensive line rotation that can bully opposing quarterbacks. That pressure up front is what will make life easier for the young secondary. This isn't a defense designed to bend and wait. It's built to attack. If Weaver lets these pass rushers loose, Miami could create the exact chaos that turns close games into victories. The blueprint is obvious. Stop the run just enough, pressure the quarterback relentlessly, and let turnovers swing momentum. If they execute that consistently, Miami could win a lot more of those close, one-score battles they lost in recent years. That's what sleeper defenses are made of. Now, when you combine this defense with the offense we already discussed, you start to see a complete team emerging. It's not just fireworks on one side and hope on the other. It's a balance, which is what true contenders need. Miami has the offensive weapons to score quickly, but also the defensive front to pressure elite quarterbacks like Mahomes or Josh Allen. This combination gives them a fighting chance in any playoff matchup. Think about that for a second. How many teams in the AFC can honestly say they can score 30 points on any given Sunday while also rushing the passer for legitimate studs? Not many. That's why Miami sits in this sweet spot where they're overlooked but fully capable. They're not the Chiefs or Ravens on paper, but they don't have to be. They just need to be healthy and consistent at the right time. That formula has fueled countless Cinderella playoff runs. The biggest hurdle remains mental. For over 2 decades, Dolphins fans have waited for a playoff victory. It has been 25 long years since the team won in January, and that kind of drought becomes psychological. It lingers. It turns every playoff appearance into extra pressure. That's why this season is so important. Miami needs that breakthrough win to shed the stigma. Once they get it, the confidence grows, and suddenly anything feels possible. The Bengals broke through like that. The Commanders did it. The question is whether Miami can do it in 2025. If they beat one of the AFC's elites, that changes everything. Suddenly, they're not the cute story or the fun offense. They're a legitimate problem. Until then, the tag remains sleeper, but that's not necessarily bad. Sometimes being overlooked is exactly what a team needs to fuel the fire. Miami has the hunger, now they need the results. So what does all this mean for Dolphins fans? It means cautious optimism is justified. No, this isn't about crowning Miami as Super Bowl favorites, but it is about respecting the potential. When the pieces align, this roster can compete with anybody. Tua has shown he can win. Tyreek and Waddle give them explosive plays. The defense has the makings of something nasty under Anthony Weaver, and the schedule gives them chances to prove it, especially in games against Buffalo and Baltimore. If they steal one of those, the tone of the entire season changes. That's the opportunity staring them in the face. Will injuries derail things again? Possibly. Will the media continue doubting them? Absolutely. But isn't that the perfect setup for a sleeper story? Nobody expects much, but suddenly Miami finds itself in January, knocking on the door. That's why hope is alive in South Florida right now. In conclusion, calling the Miami Dolphins a sleeper team in 2025 isn't about blind optimism. It's about connecting dots. No one is talking about them, yet they have the same offense that once led the league. Their quarterback remains underrated, though the numbers prove his worth. Their defense is younger, faster, and guided by a coordinator who could be the league's next star. That's 3 big reasons to keep an eye on Miami this season. And sure, maybe they don't deliver. Maybe injuries strike again. But if the breaks finally go their way, if they stay healthy, and if Tua silences the doubters, this could be the year the Dolphins shock the NFL. That's what makes sleeper teams fun. The possibility, the unknown, the chaos they unleash when expectations are low. So buckle up, because the ride in Miami might be unpredictable, but it's definitely one worth watching all the way through. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? Miami is buzzing with excitement after the latest rumor that has taken over both local sports radio and national debate shows. Kendrick Bourne is reportedly set to become a Miami Dolphin, and insiders close to the organization are saying this move isn't just about adding depth to the wide receiver room. It's about unlocking the next level of Mike McDaniel's already explosive offense. For weeks, speculation has swirled about whether the Dolphins would make a quiet but strategic addition to their receiving core, especially given the heavy reliance on Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Now, whispers from trusted sources suggest that Bourne has been identified as the perfect WR3, a player capable of taking pressure off Miami's stars while still providing a reliable target for Tua Tagovailoa. Fans are calling it a sneaky, under-the-radar signing that could dramatically shift the way defenses line up against Miami this season. The buzz comes at an interesting time for the Dolphins, who have been trying to prove to the league that they are more than just a highlight reel offense. For all the fireworks produced by Hill and Waddle, opponents have increasingly adjusted by bracketing deep coverage, daring Miami to find production elsewhere. That's where Kendrick Bourne enters the picture. Known for his physicality, sharp route running, and ability to thrive in chaotic situations, Bourne brings something the current depth chart has been lacking: a true possession receiver who can consistently move the chains. Rumor has it McDaniel sees Bourne not just as a complementary piece, but as a strategic chess move, someone who can punish defenses that overload against Miami speedsters. If this signing goes through, the Dolphins may finally have the balanced attack that keeps defensive coordinators awake at night. For now, nothing is official, but the confidence with which local insiders speak is raising eyebrows everywhere. Around the league, rival executives are already commenting off the record that Miami might have pulled off the smartest mid-tier acquisition of the offseason. Kendrick Bourne doesn't carry the superstar label, but his reputation as a locker room leader and a grinder has followed him from San Francisco to New England. Patriots fans often complained that he wasn't used properly, yet when given opportunities, he showed flashes of brilliance, whether it was clutch third-down grabs or surprising yards after catch. Now imagine placing him in an offense designed around misdirection, motion, and maximizing speed and space. The fit almost feels too perfect. If you're a defensive back already stressed about chasing Hill and Waddle, the idea of also having to deal with Bourne's toughness over the middle could be a nightmare. Miami has long needed that kind of safety valve, and it looks like they may have just found it. Fans in Miami are reacting with cautious optimism. Social media exploded as soon as the first whispers hit Twitter, with some supporters claiming that this move alone pushes the Dolphins deeper into playoff contention. Others are more reserved, arguing that until Bourne actually proves himself in aqua and orange, it's just another rumor in a long offseason filled with speculation. Still, there's a different energy to this one. Beat reporters covering the Dolphins are saying the chatter feels more real than the usual gossip. It's not just faceless internet accounts tossing out scenarios. It's respected voices in the community hinting that something concrete is happening behind the scenes. Even the tone of players' interactions online has fueled the fire, with cryptic likes and comments making fans wonder if Bourne himself already knows the deal is done. In Miami, where every offseason is full of hype, this story is gaining momentum fast. The bigger question, of course, is how Kendrick Bourne changes the actual structure of the Dolphins' offense. On paper, the WR3 role might not sound flashy, but in reality, it's the hinge that can open up everything. Defenses key in on Hill and Waddle, forcing Tua to look for alternatives. Last year, that often led to stalled drives or desperate throws. With Bourne, Miami suddenly has a third option that defenses cannot ignore. His ability to block in the running game also makes him a perfect fit for McDaniel's system, which relies heavily on receivers who can contribute beyond catching passes. Some insiders believe that Bourne could even find a niche as a red zone target, where his physicality becomes a weapon. It's the type of move that doesn't dominate headlines, but makes a huge difference in winning tight games down the stretch. Miami might finally have found its missing puzzle piece. From a cultural standpoint, Bourne's personality could also be a major factor. Miami's locker room has developed a reputation for being fun, loose, and energetic under McDaniel's leadership, but it also needs players who bring steady professionalism. Bourne has been praised in every stop for his positivity, his work ethic, and his ability to rally teammates when things get tough. That matters more than most fans realize. With a young quarterback like Tua, having a receiver who can help calm huddles, reinforce confidence, and create chemistry across position groups could be invaluable. In New England, despite frustrations with his role, Bourne was beloved by teammates and respected by coaches. Bringing that attitude into Miami's locker room might be just as impactful as anything he does on the field. Sometimes, the hidden value of a signing goes far beyond the box score, and this feels like one of those cases. The timing of this rumor also can't be ignored. Miami is in the middle of a window where expectations are sky-high, and every move is scrutinized through the lens of championship contention. Adding Kendrick Bourne might not dominate national headlines like a blockbuster trade, but it signals something about the Dolphins' mindset. They're willing to make smart, precise adjustments rather than flashy gambles. After last season's roller coaster, where the Dolphins looked unstoppable at times and vulnerable at others, stability is what the franchise craves. Bourne represents stability. He may not break games wide open, but he ensures the floor of the offense remains high. That's often the difference between being a good team and being a contender. In the NFL, championships are built as much on depth and reliability as they are on star power. Miami seems to understand that lesson well. Still, there are skeptics. Some analysts argue that Bourne's numbers in New England were modest, and that projecting him as a game-changer in Miami might be wishful thinking. They point to durability concerns, streaky production, and the fact that he's never been more than a secondary option. But that criticism may miss the point. Miami isn't asking Bourne to be a star. They're asking him to fill a very specific role. With Hill and Waddle demanding so much defensive attention, Bourne could thrive simply by being open when defenses overcommit. In other words, his ceiling in Miami might be higher than it ever was in New England. And given the creativity of McDaniel's schemes, even skeptics acknowledge it's hard to dismiss the potential outright. Sometimes a player's environment makes all the difference, and Bourne might be walking into the perfect one. Behind the scenes, the rumor mill is churning faster than ever. Some insiders are already talking about numbers, suggesting that the deal on the table is short-term but incentive-heavy, designed to reward Bourne if he produces immediately. Others say it's still early and negotiations could take time, but the mutual interest is undeniable. For Bourne, joining Miami represents a chance to prove himself on a big stage and potentially earn a more lucrative contract down the line. For the Dolphins, it's a low-risk, high-reward gamble that fits perfectly with their roster construction philosophy. The fit seems natural, almost inevitable, and that's why so many around the league believe this rumor has legs. It's not often that speculation feels this close to reality, but Miami fans are bracing for an announcement any day now. At the end of the day, whether the deal becomes official tomorrow, next week, or never, the conversation it has sparked is telling. Dolphins fans are hungry for a season where everything finally clicks, where all the talent on paper translates into deep playoff success. The possible arrival of Kendrick Bourne has tapped into that hope, giving the fan base a vision of an offense that is not just explosive but complete. Even if it remains just a rumor for now, the excitement surrounding it says a lot about where the Dolphins are as a franchise. This isn't the kind of chatter that fades overnight. It lingers, grows, and builds anticipation. If Miami does finalize this move, it may not just be another signing. It could be remembered as the quiet catalyst that helped turn potential into results. For now, all eyes stay fixed on South Beach. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.